Good afternoon, everybody. One of the things I want to make really clear is my conversation with you today is less focused on the actual product and more focused on the printed paper and packaging that most of those products come in. So sometimes it's not easy, but it's more efficient to recover a specific item, not necessarily the packaging. And one of the things I really want to hit on, because we've sat through a lot of different conferences, we have a problem. We have a systemic issue in the world when it comes to resource recovery and the use of resources. We know all the stats, we can rhyme it off and pull at all the heartstrings we want, but at the end of the day, the people in this room realize that there is a problem and we need to do something about it, because by 2020 or 2050, this little girl's not going to have resources to use. I look at my nephew, I look at nieces, nephews, look at your children, your grandchildren. What are we leaving them? What is our responsibility to leave them? And that's the importance of the circular economy and what it stands for as a whole. And for me, speaking to you from a Cascade standpoint, and I work in our recovery division, but I'm here today talking to you holistically as an organization. So Cascades, for you that don't know, we are a brand owner, we're a packaging producer, we're a collector, we're a processor, we're a downstream manufacturer, and we turn it back into new products that sells on retail shelves. So we have a really interesting vantage point on circular economy because we really see every aspect of the supply chain. Now, you can look at it as a positive or a negative. We see every aspect of the supply chain, so we're able to learn a few things, but we're also able to see the world as a whole and understand the significant problems that we're faced with as an economy, as a country, to create what we're calling this circular economy. So as I mentioned, Cascades is made of three different divisions, our recovery, paper, and packaging division. And I'm going to take you on a little bit of a journey because we have a really interesting dynamic in terms of our product portfolio. And we have items like the cardboard box that we call a circular legend that we're really proud of. It's something we're all really proud of. But then we have this other thing called a styrofoam meat tray, our Evoke meat tray, which is not so circular. And this is where our journey began as an organization, because this is a really big business for us. So how do we conquer it? How do we look at, is it supposed to just ban styrofoam? What do we need to do to understand it? And we're really taking this initiative and applying it more and more to our business and to the economy as a whole. So our mission is to create a circular economy. But what I really want to focus on is the latter half of this discussion, of this mission statement, which we'll touch on a little bit later in the presentation. But it's not about what we know as an organization, it's about what we know and share as an organization, because that will be the only way to truly create that circular economy. So a couple things as we went through our journey on the styrofoam meat tray or the Evoke meat tray. I wish I could answer all the questions. I think we've come across, like I've said earlier, more questions than answers as we've analyzed our business model, and we have directors of circular innovation that are doing just that. They're looking at our portfolio of products and trying to understand what is circular and what's not. And we're sure, let's celebrate the success of the cardboard box, that's fantastic, but it's been around forever and it's circular, leave it alone. Let's talk about the hard things. Let's talk about why we're banning items. Let's talk about what we need to do as an industry. So one of the things that really shines for me, and I think is core to our issue, is you have material value and you have material recyclability. Only where those two items interchange do you have a recycled product that's collected, processed, and remanufactured into something new. So again, you look at cardboard, it's got value to it, high value in the commodity marketplace. It's very recyclable. We set up infrastructure across North America to collect, process it. Styrofoam tray is recyclable. We can use it in our process. We can turn it into a new meat tray, pre and post consumer. But the value is the hard thing on that. So because there's no value, we don't invest in the infrastructure to bring that circular aspect to life. So what we're analyzing really is what we're coining circular integrity cost, which is really analyzing the difference between a virgin material and a recycled fiber, or a recycled material in general. So long story short, if you have a virgin material that's $1 or a penny per unit, and you have a recycled fiber or recycled material that's 10 cents per unit, you have a 9-cent gap. That's your circularity cost. How do we understand how to close that gap, or else why is anybody going to buy recycled materials? Sure, we're going to include it, but we're not going to focus our energy on only recyclable. So we need to create that level playing field, and this is key to the success of circular economy. Materials need to be treated equally. Because OCC or cardboard has a 90% collection rate or diversion rate, why does plastic only have a 40%? Everything needs to be treated equally. If you're not circular, there has to be penalties in place. More importantly, a package is a product. There's so much emphasis on brand owners, but what about us as an organization that is a packaging producer? We feel we need to be at the table to talk about how our package for us is a product and it needs to create that circular. And once all of this is done, we're going to compete on circularity, which leads me into my next point of what does government have to do with this? How do they get involved? What do we need from them to truly create a circular economy? And from my perspective personally, it's really three things. They need to level the playing field for all materials. They need to set the guardrails and the penalties, and then they need to back off and let the industry as a whole compete on circular. So lay the land, then let everybody compete on truly creating circular competition and circular products. So again, when we look back at this not-so-circular legend, I think the biggest learning for us as an organization really came down to the fact that we can't do this alone. I can stand in front of you and probably tell you in a year from now a great circular story about us putting an infrastructure in place in a small community that collected styrofoam and we sold it back to Cascades and we turned it into Evoke meat trays, and it's a great story. But is that really systemic change? Or do I just feel good because we did it for a very small portion of materials? So in order to create systemic change, we can't do it alone. And that's the biggest thing that we found out is how do we sit down with industry to look at specific materials and understand how we need to come together, create a level playing field, and then compete on that level playing field. The size of the team and bringing all the knowledge is so important, especially when we look at the supply chain side of things from our perspective. There are things that we know, and there are already things as well that we think we know, but the more we sit down with people and other individuals at other aspects of the supply chain, the more we realize we don't know. And we really need to engage their knowledge, engage their ideas to drive what we're calling a circular economy. So one of the things that we always ask ourselves in a lot of the decisions that we're making is, what are we building? So as a country, as a business, as individuals, what are we building? And the question I'm going to ask is, are we building circular companies or are we building a circular economy? Because circular companies exist. We're all doing great things at circular. However, if we're not sharing that knowledge and sharing that ability, we're never going to truly create what we're calling a circular economy. We can't do it as individual organizations. We really need to come together as industry, as businesses, share our thoughts, and again, level that playing field. So one day, this little girl will have other issues to worry about in her life. Let's not let her worry about whether or not she's going to be able to use more products or worrying about the world coming to an end because of natural resources or something else in the future. So I appreciate that, and I really hope that everyone takes that to heart to truly understand it's about building a circular economy and not just circular businesses. Thank you.